Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, September 22. It's good to be back with you. Last week on Tuesday, we talked a little bit about our life situation during tragedy or feeling like we are abandoned. Where do we look for hope when we cannot look at our current life circumstances and be optimistic? And we use Psalm 77. This week, I want to think about where is God? What's God's disposition, position, activity when things look like tragedy all around us? And so to get a sense from the Bible of an answer for that question, I want to get us thinking about the central tragedy that happens to God's people in the Old Testament, and that is the Babylonian exile. So let's take just a brief, abbreviated survey of how that comes about. In the Old Testament, God takes this nation, Israel, and brings this people out of bondage in Egypt and gives them the promised land in Canaan. This is a divine land grant. They haven't done anything to deserve it, but God chooses this nation as his special inheritance to be a light to the world, to be a blessing to all nations, as God had said to Abraham back in Genesis 12, that through you all nations will be blessed. So the Israelites are supposed to be this nation. God gives them this land, and his temple is in this land, built by Solomon, who's sort of the second great king after David. David rules over the entire kingdom and is described as a man after God's own heart, although he has some pretty serious failures during his kingship. Solomon takes over and brings the nation to its high point of economic prosperity, builds the temple of the Lord, although with the industrialization of the nation comes some problems, and those reach a boiling point with Solomon's son, David's grandson, Rehoboam. During Rehoboam's reign, the country has a national split. It divides into two countries. So the line of David's kings continues to rule in the south, in the kingdom of Judah. The north becomes an independent kingdom and is overthrown by a foreign superpower. Eventually, the time comes when the south is also overthrown. And when that happens, it's by the kingdom of Babylon under King Nebuchadnezzar, whose troops come into Jerusalem, take the people away, destroy the city, destroy the nation, and destroy the temple of God. This is the low point, the central tragedy of the Old Testament people of God. And if you read from Genesis to 2 Kings, that is the story, a very abbreviated form of the story, that you're going to read. So, what happens then when God's people are in that place of absolute devastation and absolute tragedy? Well, the story picks up in the book of Ezra, and I want to read the first 6 verses from Ezra chapter 1. In the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia. Now Persia is a new superpower. Judah has been overthrown and exiled by the kingdom of Babylon, King Nebuchadnezzar. Time goes by and a new superpower arises. That's the kingdom of Persia that supplants the kingdom of Babylon. In the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, in order to fulfill the word of the Lord spoken by Jeremiah, the Lord moved the heart of Cyrus, king of Persia, to make a proclamation throughout his realm. Cyrus basically rules the whole, for all practical purposes, the whole world. Everything that's within striking distance of the action that's going on in the Bible. He's the emperor of it all. Moved the heart of Cyrus, king of Persia, to make a proclamation throughout his realm and also to put it in writing. This is what Cyrus, king of Persia, says: "The Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has appointed me to build a temple for him at Jerusalem in Judah, so to replace the temple of the Lord built by Solomon that was destroyed under Nebuchadnezzar. Any of his people," that's people descended from Israel, "any of his people among you may go up to Jerusalem in Judah and build the temple of the Lord, the God of Israel, the God who is in Jerusalem, and may their God be with them. And in any locality where survivors may now be living, the people are to provide them with silver and gold, with goods and livestock, and with free will offerings for the temple of God in Jerusalem. Then the family heads of Judah and Benjamin, and the priests and Levites, everyone whose heart God had moved, prepared to go up and build the house of the Lord in Jerusalem. All their neighbors assisted them with articles of silver and gold, with goods and livestock, and with valuable gifts, in addition to all the freewill offerings. So that last part recalls the situation of the Israelites when they went out of bondage in Egypt, and the Egyptians started giving them riches and gold and things like that. Here, as they leave their exile in the region of Babylon, as King Cyrus of Persia lets them go back, their neighbors give them gold and silver and animals as they head back to Jerusalem, the promised land, to see what's left of it. And we'll find out what's left of it in the weeks to come. There's a few things we notice about God's disposition here in the midst of his people's tragedy. And that is, first of all, that God is still with his people. He hasn't forgotten about them. God is still with them, even when, in this case, the tragedy of the people is caused by their own sin. The Bible describes the exile being a result of the people's unfaithfulness. They get ejected from their kingdom, brought into exile, and God is still with them. God doesn't forget about them. See, judgment is not the last word in the Bible. You can even go to these prophets of judgment like Amos, who declares impending judgment for the sins of the people, but judgment is not the last word. God says, but then I will raise up a remnant who is faithful to me, and things are going to go good for them. So judgment is not the last word, and God is still with his people in the place of their tragedy. He hasn't forgotten about them, even when it was them who sinned. The second thing we notice in these 6 verses from Ezra is that God is all-powerful. God is working things out here. Things are not random occurrences. God moves the heart of King Cyrus of Persia to let his people go, to let them go back to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple of the Lord. God moves the heart of the people of Israel to go back. It says, all those whom God had moved their heart. I'll get the exact phrase here because that's not quite it. It says, everyone whose heart God had moved prepared to go up and build the house of the Lord in Jerusalem. So God is not only with his people, but he is in control. God's sovereignty does not wane in the face of tragedy. And the other thing that we notice in these verses from Ezra is that God uses very unlikely means to bring about his purposes. God works through King Cyrus, this pagan emperor, a man with complete power. God moves his heart, of all people, to be a savior for God's people. God chooses King Cyrus, this most unlikely candidate. And so what that shows us is, in the face of tragedy, God is still in control, and God may use very unlikely means, very unlikely individuals to accomplish his purposes. This gives us hope even in the face of disorienting tragedy. And so as we move through as a culture, as a society, this confusing, disoriented time of the pandemic, these points apply. God is with his people. God is in control. God can use unlikely means. But whatever you're going through in your life, these points still apply. Your tragedy, your darkness might be of a completely different kind, might have nothing to do with the pandemic. And once the pandemic washes over, each of us will still go through personal, relational, family, communal tragedies. These points apply. God is with us. God is in control, and God will use whatever means God deems necessary, as unlikely as they seem to us, to accomplish his purposes. Now, I want to stick with this story. I think it's really relevant to the time we're in right now as a community, as a society. So we're going to keep looking at this part of the story, the aftermath of the exile, in the weeks to come, and we'll see how long we track with it. But let's pick it up where we left off next week. But for now, have a great day, have a great week, and we'll see you next time.